Hello friends, welcome to the HFY Ode, where we bring you new science fiction stories, a new world, a new adventure. And yes, there is no robotic or AI voices here, only real human voices with real human touch. So let's start this journey, and please subscribe my channel if you like the stories and press the bell icon for the latest updates. Let's have a story. Okay.
I have run the wheel for 41 years. I have watched the proudest creatures in this galaxy come apart at 12 gravities, at 15, at 18. I have seen a Korathi war-heir, bred for 9 generations to withstand thrust, weep through his own teeth at 16 and beg me to stop the spin. I have signed the medical release on cadets who could lift a transport sled with one limb and still could not lift their own jaw off their chest under load. So believe me when I tell you, in 41 years, no cadet ever frightened me. Until I watched a human girl reach into a cloth bag, pull out a ball of soft string and begin, calmly, with both small hands, to braid it. Let me start from the beginning, slowly, because if I rush this, you won't believe me, and I need you to believe me. My name is Vask Athen. I am Thren. If you've never met one of my kind, picture something tall and dry, with a hard outer shell the color of old riverstone, and a voice that clicks before it speaks. We are not a warm people. We are a precise one. The self-improving ring chose me to run its gravity trials because I do not flinch and I do not lie, and at the ring those two things are worth more than blood. The ring sits in a dead system. There used to be a star here, a long time ago, and then there wasn't, it collapsed into a cinder, a hard little coal that gives no light and pulls hard. We built our station in a wide orbit around that cinder because the testing authorities wanted a place far from courtrooms and parents and reporters. A place where the truth could happen without anyone there to argue with it. The truth at the ring comes from the wheel. The wheel is a centrifuge. That word makes it sound small. It is not small. It is a ring of reinforced cradles spinning around a central axis, and when it turns, it presses you down into your seat with the weight of worlds. We measure that weight in gravities GS. 1 G is just standing on a normal planet. Most species black out somewhere between 8 and 10 if they aren't trained. Trained with the right gear and the right blood, a good cadet can hold 12. The truly exceptional reach 15. The ring exists to find the ones who go further. Because out past the safe lanes, in the deep thrust corridors where the new military drives run hot, a soldier needs to stay awake and aware at gravities that would turn a normal body into pulp against a seat. We aren't just testing strength. We're testing whether a mind can keep working while the blood is being dragged out of it, whether you can still think, still aim, still decide, while your own body is trying to kill you. That year we had 12 of them, 12 valedictorians. You have to understand what that means. Every elite academy in the core system sends us one cadet a cycle, their best, their top of class, the one with the cleanest scores and the proudest instructors and the family banner already half-stitched. 12 academies, 12 worlds, 12 cultures that have been refining warriors since before my species learned to write. And that cycle, almost as an afterthought, the registrar's office added a 13th name to the manifest. A late entry, an exchange slot from one of the fringe worlds, the kind of place the core systems can't quite find on a map without squinting. Earth. I remember reading the name on the roster and clicking once in irritation. We did not get humans at the ring. Humans were new to the wider galaxy then, recently contacted, mostly harmless, good at improvising and bad at protocol. They had a reputation for being soft, heavy-boned, slow, fragile in odd places. The kind of species you let into the lower programs to be polite, not the kind you put in a cradle next to the proudest blood in the core. But the slot was funded and the paperwork was clean, so I let it stand. I did not even bother to learn her name before she arrived. I assumed she would wash out in the first week, when the acclimation run started, and I would never have to. Her name was Ren Castellan. She came off the transport last, behind the 12, carrying her own bag. That was the first thing I noticed, and I want you to hold on to it, because it mattered more than I understood at the time. Every other cadet had their gear carried for them. The Korathi heir had 2 attendants. The Eastri prodigy, a slender silver creature named Senval, traveled with a personal medic. They came down the ramp like a procession, chins up, banners on their shoulders, each one already performing for an audience that wasn't there yet. The human came down last, alone, with a battered green duffel over one shoulder and a smaller cloth bag clutched against her chest like it had something fragile in it. She was small, smaller than I expected. Brown-skinned, dark hair pulled back tight, with a flat, watchful sort of face that didn't seem to be performing anything at all. She looked tired. She looked like someone who had taken a very long bus ride and was now standing in a place she didn't especially want to be. She caught me staring and gave me a small nod. Not a salute, a nod like you'd give a stranger in a corridor. I clicked once and looked away. Soft, I thought, polite, gone in a week. I was right about polite. The acclimation runs are gentle by ring standards. We start the cadets at 4 GS and bring them up slowly over the first days 5, 6, 7, to let their bodies learn the cradle and let us learn their bodies. We watch the monitors. We watch the color of them, the pressure in their vessels, the way their eyes move. We are not trying to break anyone in week 1. We are trying to read them. The 12 read beautifully. You could see why they'd been chosen. The Korathi heir, his name was Uruntal, and I'll use it because it deserves to be remembered honestly, held 7 GS without a tremor, breathing in the long, slow pulls his instructors had drilled into him since he could stand. Senval of the Eastri folded her silver limbs into the cradle and went still as poured metal, her readings flat and clean. A broad gray cadet named Dorun, from a heavy world where the gravity already runs strong, sat in the spin like he was lounging. A dozen prodigies, each one a small living monument to what careful breeding and lifelong training can build. And then there was the human, 2 cradles down on the left arm of the wheel. I almost didn't watch her run. I assumed I'd be watching her medical evacuation. I had the report half-drafted in my head, Fringe World Cadet, washed at 6 GS, returned to transport, when my second proctor, a quiet old Thren named Atresk, clicked at me and tilted his head toward the human's monitor. Her numbers were boring. I mean that as the highest praise I have. In 41 years, I have learned that the most dangerous word on my board is interesting. Interesting means a spike, a strain, a vessel doing something it shouldn't. Boring means a body doing exactly what it's supposed to do and nothing else. Ren Castellan's body at 7 GS was boring. Heart rate slightly up, pressure holding, oxygen good, no tremor I could find. She sat in her cradle with her hands flat on her thighs and her eyes half closed, breathing slow, and her readings just held. I told myself it was the early hours. 7 GS is nothing. Heavy world species like Dorun barely feel it. Humans came from a world with ordinary gravity, true, but they'd evolved as long-distance runners, persistence hunters, the kind of animal that catches its prey not by being faster, but by refusing to stop. A body built to keep working past the point where the prey gives up. I'd read that somewhere and dismissed it as fringe world poetry. I kept watching anyway. We climbed to 8 GS on the 3rd day, to 9 on the 5th. The 12 stayed strong. Uruntal at 9 looked carved from stone. Senval's readings stayed clean, though I caught the first faint tightness in them, the body beginning to argue. Dorun yawned. The others held in their various ways, some by strength, some by the long, terrible discipline that core academies drill into their best, the discipline that lets you keep a calm face while your blood is screaming. That's the thing about the proud ones. They are trained to perform calm. It's a beautiful skill and it works, right up until the moment the body costs more than the performance can pay for. Then the mask doesn't crack. It shatters, all at once. I have seen it 100 times, and it still chills my shell. The human, at 9 GS, reached into the cloth bag in her lap and took out the string. I remember the exact moment because Atresk made a sound I had never heard him make in 30 years of working beside him. A short, baffled click, the equivalent of a man saying, "What?" out loud in an empty room. I leaned toward my monitor. I thought I was misreading the feed. She had pulled out 3 strands of soft cord, pale, frayed. Ordinary, the kind of thing you'd use to tie a parcel, except softer, with a little give to it. And under 9 gravities, with her arms weighing 9 times what they should, with the spin pressing her down into the cradle hard enough to drain a normal mind to gray, Ren Castellan lifted those 3 strands, pinched them between her fingers, and began to braid. Over, under, over. Slow, deliberate, her hands moving in small, patient motions against all that weight like a person sitting on a porch at the end of a long day. Her face hadn't changed. Her readings hadn't changed. She wasn't gritting through it. She wasn't performing endurance. She was just passing the time. I called down to the cradle floor on the private channel. "Cadet Castellan," I said, "what are you doing?" It wasn't quite a question. I don't think I knew what it was. There was a pause. Then her voice came back through the feed, a little flattened by the GS but perfectly calm, perfectly clear. "Braiding, sir." Atresk clicked. I clicked back. On the cradle floor, 2 arms over, I saw Uruntal's head turn a few hard degrees against the weight, the Korathi air, the proudest cadet in the rotation, breaking his own perfect stillness to look at the small human who was making string. "I can see that," I said. "Why?" Another pause. The braid grew a finger's length. "Helps my hands stay busy," she said. "Hands get restless, the rest of you starts paying attention to the weight. You start counting it. Counting it's the worst thing you can do, a beat. My gran taught me. She did this whole farm by herself into her 90s, said busy hands carry a body further than strong ones." And then, almost as an afterthought, like she was apologizing for talking too much, "Sorry, should I stop, sir?" I did not have an answer. I am a proctor with 41 years of certifications, and I did not have an answer. "Continue," I said finally. And I muted the channel and sat very still in my chair and watched a fringe-world girl braid string at 9 gravities, while 12 of the finest soldiers in the galaxy began, one by one, to feel the first true edge of fear. Because they'd seen it too. That's the part the official record never captured, and it's the part I think about most. The 12 had spent their whole lives being the strongest thing in every room. The proudest, the most trained, the most certain. And on the 5th day of the Selving trials, every one of them watched a small, soft-boned human do the one thing none of their training had prepared them for. She made it look easy. Not strong, not heroic, easy, boring, like the gravity that was a mountain on their chests was to her just weather. I have thought a long time about why that broke them faster than the wheel did. I think it's this. You can hold a great weight if you believe it's the limit of what's possible. You tell yourself, no one could do more than this, and the belief holds you up like a second spine. But the moment you see someone do more and do it without strain, without even seeming to notice it's hard, that second spine snaps. The weight doesn't change. The story you were telling yourself about the weight does. And it's the story that was holding you up. We climbed to 12 gravities on the 8th day. This is where the ordinary trials end. 12 is the line. Below it, you're a soldier. At it, you're rare. Past it, you're the kind of thing the Deep Thrust Corps writes letters home about. Most cycles, 2 or 3 cadets reach 12 and the rest are politely sent down to lesser postings, with honor, with no shame in it. That cycle, all 12 reached 12 gravities, every valedictorian. It had never happened before in the ring's history. The Corps academies had outdone themselves. And so had the human. At 12 GS, Ren Castellan's readings were still boring. Heart slightly elevated, pressure holding, no tremor. She'd finished the first braid and started a second, longer one, working a 4th strand in now, something more complicated, her brow just faintly furrowed, not with strain, I realized, watching her face on the close feed. With concentration. the way you frown at a puzzle you're enjoying. The 12 at 12 GS had stopped performing. You could see the masks going. Uruntal's perfect breathing had developed a hitch, a small catch at the top of each pull. Senval's clean silver readings had grown teeth, the first sharp spikes, her body beginning the long argument it would eventually win. Dorun, the heavy worlder, was the only one still comfortable, and even he had stopped yawning. One by one, the proud ones were arriving at the place where the body stops obeying the will, and they were arriving angry and afraid. And I think this is the cruelest part, humiliated. Because 2 cradles down, the fringe-world girl was making string, and her hands hadn't slowed at all. I should have stopped there. 12 is the line. Everyone had passed. I had a station full of certified records and a cycle for the history books. The smart thing, the safe thing, the thing 41 years should have taught me, was to power down the wheel, sign the releases, and send 13 extraordinary cadets home as legends. But the registrar's office had a question, and the question was about the human. They wanted to know her ceiling. A fringe-world species, newly contacted, posting boring numbers at gravities that broke core world prodigies. The data was either a miracle or a malfunction, and the registrar did not believe in miracles. They wanted me to climb, past 12, past the line, as high as the cadets would consent to go, to find where the human finally cracked, so they could write it down and file it and stop being unsettled by a girl with a ball of string. I put it to the cadets. They all have the right to step down. Past 12, every gravity is volunteered freely with full medical warning. I told them the trial could end now with full honors. I told them what came next was no longer a requirement. I told them the registrar was asking and they could refuse. Not one of them stepped down. I understood why. They'd seen her. The proud ones would not, climb out of their cradles while the human stayed in hers. Pride had stopped being a strength and started being a leash, and it was dragging 12 of the galaxy's finest straight toward a number none of them could survive. I asked the human last on the private channel. I gave her the same warning, the full one, the one with the words risk of permanent injury or death in it. She thought about it for a moment. Her hands kept braiding the whole time. The others staying in, sir. They are, I said. Then I'll stay too, she said. Wouldn't be right to climb out and leave them to it. And then, quiet, almost to herself, in a voice I don't think she meant me to hear. Besides, I'm not done with this one yet. She lifted the half-finished braid an inch off her lap, the way you'd show a piece of work to someone, and let it settle back down under the weight. I muted the channel. I sat in the dark of the control gallery with the cinder turning black and heavy below us, and the wheel humming its low note through the deck plates, and I made the worst decision of my career, and the only one I'd make again. I reached for the dial, and I began to climb. 13 gravities. I brought the wheel up slow. You never jump it. You feed the weight in like you're pouring something heavy into a cup that's already near the brim, watching for the spill. The note in the deck plates climbed half a tone. Down on the cradle floor, 13 bodies pressed deeper into 13 cradles, and the monitors in front of me lit up with the first honest readings of the whole cycle. Honest, that's the word. Everything before 13 had been the cadets and their training. From here on it was just the bodies, and the bodies don't lie. Uruntal went first. Not down, the Korathi heir was far too proud and far too built to fall at 13, but his perfect breathing finally broke its rhythm. I watched the long, slow pulls turn ragged, watched him fight to get them back, watched the discipline of 9 generations start spending itself faster than it could earn. His readings climbed. Not dangerous yet, but climbing. Senval of the Eastry was worse. The silver prodigy had been the cleanest reading on my board for 8 days, and at 13, her body declared the argument it had been losing in private. The spikes came sharp now, her slender vessels straining against the drag, her medic standing useless on the far side of the safety line because there is nothing a medic can do for you inside the wheel. You're alone in there. That's the point of the place. Dorun, the heavy worlder, was still the strongest of the 12. At 13, he merely looked uncomfortable, like a large animal standing in the rain. I noted it. I'd remember it. And the human Braided. 13 gravities. And Ren Castellan's hands moved over. The fourth strand was woven in now, the pattern tightening into something I didn't have a word for, some old craft from a fringe world, made by a girl in a cradle while her own arms weighed as much as a grown Thren. Her face had that same faint frown of pleasant concentration. Her readings nudged up a hair and held. I want to be careful here, because this is where people stop believing me, and I need you with me. She was not unbreakable. That's the lie the story grows into when it's told around a fire, the human who couldn't be crushed. That's not what I saw. I saw a body under real load. Her heart was working hard. Her pressure was up. The weight was on her exactly as it was on everyone, 13 times her own mass dragging at her blood, and her body was paying for every minute of it. The difference wasn't that she didn't feel it. The difference was what she did with the feeling. The 12 fought the weight. Every one of them, in their own trained way, met 13 gravities with resistance, clenched, braced, performed calm over the top of a body at war. They spent enormous energy fighting a thing that cannot be fought, only endured. And fighting it, they burned through their reserves like dry grass. The human didn't fight it at all. She let the weight sit on her like a blanket she decided not to mind. She gave it nothing to push against. She breathed low and easy, kept her hands moving, and spent almost nothing, and the little she spent on the braid, not on the war. I understood it then, watching the two patterns side by side on my board. The 12 were treating the wheel as an enemy to be defeated. The human was treating it as weather to be outlasted. And weather always wins against an enemy. Weather doesn't get tired. The only way to beat weather is to stop fighting it and simply still be standing when it passes. 14 gravities. This is where I lost the first one. It was a cadet I haven't named yet, a tall, reed-thin creature from the Velkhani reaches called Oset, all long bones and longer pride, who'd held a beautiful line all cycle. At 14 GS, the blood drained out of his head faster than his vessels could fight to keep it, and the gray came up over his vision the way it does, from the edges in, and the last thing his proud body did before it surrendered was try to sit up straighter. That's the detail I'll never lose. He blacked out trying to improve his posture. The alarm chimed. The cradle's safety system caught him, eased his arm of the wheel out of the spin, brought him gently down. Medics had him in 20 seconds. He'd be fine, sore, ashamed, fine. But he was out. The first valedictorian broken at 14, and the cycle's perfect record cracked with him. 11 left in the spin, and the human who hadn't looked up from the braid. 15 gravities. The board lit like a fire now. 15 is where the rare ones live, and even the rare ones don't live there long. I watched Senval go, the silver Eastri, the prodigy, the one with the personal medic, and she went the hard way, the way the proudest ones often do. She felt it coming. You can see it on the feed when a cadet feels the gray rising and knows they can't stop it. There's a moment of pure animal panic under all that training, the body realizing the will has lost. Senval's clean composure dissolved into that panic in the last 2 seconds, her silver face contorting, and then the safety caught her and brought her down, and she was gone. 2 down, both at the edges of their kind's limit. Nothing shameful in it. 15 gravities is a number most of the galaxy will never touch. But the proud ones don't measure themselves against the galaxy. They measure themselves against the cradle 2 arms down. And 2 arms down, Ren Castellan had finished her braid. I saw her tie it off. Both hands at 15 gravities, working a small neat knot at the end of a length of woven cord, the way you'd finish any handmade thing, a little tug to test it, a small satisfied tilt of her head. And then she did the thing that I think more than anything else broke the 9 who were left. She set it down in her lap, and she reached into the cloth bag and took out fresh strands, and she started a new one. Like the first had only been to warm up. I heard it on the cradle floor through the open safety channel, a sound from Urun Tau, the Korathi heir, at 15 gravities, with his perfect breathing in ruins and his proud blood draining, and his whole identity built on being the strongest thing in any room. It wasn't a word. It was a kind of broken exhale, half disbelief and half grief, the sound of a story snapping. The story that had held him up his whole life. No one is stronger than my line went out of him right there, and his readings fell off a cliff. Not the weight, the story. He'd been holding 15 gravities on the strength of believing himself exceptional, and the moment a fringe world girl started her second braid, the belief gave way and the body went with it. He blacked out 3 seconds later, the proudest cadet in the rotation, down at 15, and I don't believe it was the gravity that took him. After that, they fell like a line of dominoes that had all been leaning on each other. I lost 4 in the span of a single minute at 15 gravities. The Velkhani's cousin, a stocky cadet from the Ring Worlds, 2 whose names are in the record and whose faces I remember and whose pride had been the only thing standing between them and the gray. Once the story broke, once it became undeniable that the strongest thing in the room was the small, soft human-making string, the rest of them had nothing left to lean on. The masks didn't crack one at a time anymore. They came off all at once, the way I told you they do, and the safety systems worked overtime catching bodies and easing them down out of the killing spin. 5 left, then 4, Doran the heavy worlder, 2 quiet ones who'd never made a sound all cycle, and the human. 16 gravities. I should tell you what 16 gravities is so you understand. At 16, a body's own blood has the weight of a flood trying to pool in its lowest places. The vessels in the head have to fight a war just to keep enough up there to keep the mind awake. Vision goes, then thought, then the lights. At 16 gravities, the strongest cadets I have ever certified lasted under 2 minutes, and they came out of the cradle shaking, and they never asked to go higher. Doran lasted 90 seconds at 16. The heavy worlder born and raised under strong gravity, the toughest of the 12 by raw measure, he held it longer than any of them, and he held it the honest way, no story to break because Doran had never thought himself exceptional, only heavy. He just sat in the flood and took it until his body simply ran out, and the gray took him clean and quiet, and the safety brought him down. No panic, no grief. He'd done a good thing well, and the doing had used him up. I respected that one, I still do. The 2 quiet ones went at 16 too, within 30 seconds of each other. And then there was 1 cradle left in the spin. 17 gravities. Just the human now. Alone on the whole vast wheel, the other 12 cradles dark and still, their occupants down on the medical floor coming back to themselves with that particular shame that only the proudest ever feel, the shame of having been certain and wrong. And Ren Castellan, at 17 gravities, with the second braid half finished in her lap. Her hands had slowed. That was the first change I'd seen in her all cycle, and I want to be honest about it because the lie says she didn't slow and the lie does her a disservice. She slowed. The braid that had taken minutes now took longer. Over, a pause, under, a longer pause. Her brow wasn't faintly frowning anymore. It was set, the concentration gone from pleasant to deliberate, the weight finally large enough that even she had to spend real attention on staying clear. But she did not stop, and she did not fight. I called down on the private channel. I had to. 41 years of certifications and procedure, but mostly I called because I needed to hear her. Castellan. A pause longer than before. Sir, her voice was thinner now, flattened by 17 gravities, each word pushed out against the flood, but it was steady. You're the only one left in the spin. Another pause over, under. Figured, she said, got quiet. You can step down with the highest honor of any cadet in this station's history, I told her. You've already gone further than anyone. There's no record left to break. You can come down now. The braid grew, slow, by a single woven length. "The number you wanted," she said. 20, right." I went still. The registrar's number. The ceiling they'd wanted me to find. I'd never said it on any channel she could hear. But she'd known anyway, known that the whole reason the wheel had climbed past the line was that someone, somewhere, in an office full of clean paper, wanted to write down the gravity at which the human finally cracked. "Yes," I said, "there was no point lying to her. I told you I don't." "Then let's give them their number," she said. "No sense doing all this and stopping at a number nobody asked for. And I swear this on my shell on 41 years, on every cadet I've ever brought down out of that spin." She almost laughed. A small thin breath of something like humor pushed out under 17 gravities as she added. Gran would have kept going just to be contrary. 18 gravities. I climbed it slower than I'd ever climbed anything. My hand was not steady on the dial. I am not ashamed to write that. Atresk stood at my shoulder, silent, his old shell rigid, both of us watching one small body on a board that had gone from a galaxy's finest to a single stubborn line. At 18, her readings finally entered the place I'd been dreading since 13. The pressure in her head was losing its war. The numbers I watched to know when a mind is starving, they tilted and kept tilting. Her body was beginning at last to run out. And her hands kept moving. Slow, so slow now, but moving, over. A long pause where I thought she'd gone, under. Her eyes had closed. Her face had gone slack with the work of staying conscious. But the fingers kept their small, patient motion, the Grand's lesson driven so deep that it ran on after almost everything else had quieted. Busy hands carry a body further than strong ones. I'd thought it was fringe world poetry. I was watching it keep a human alive at 18 gravities. 19. Castellan, my voice was not a proctor's voice anymore. "Talk to me." A pause so long I reached for the abort. Still here, barely, a thread of sound. Hands are tired. "You can stop." Almost, over the slowest stitch yet, almost done with this one. I don't know if she meant the braid or the trial. I think she meant both. I think to her they'd become the same thing, that the only way she knew how to walk a body to the edge of what it could survive was to give her hands one small, honest task and trust them to carry the rest of her there. Not by being strong, by refusing, in the small, patient way of her gran and her gran's gran and every persistence hunter that ever walked her old green world, to stop before the work was done. 20 gravities. I held it for 4 seconds. That's all. 4 seconds at the number the registrar wanted, the number that had broken a Korathi warrior's 9 generations of pride, the number no certified body in the ring's history had touched and stayed awake. 4 seconds, and on the 4th, Ren Castellan's hands finally went still in her lap, and the gray took her, gentle and total, the way it takes everyone in the end. I brought the wheel down before the alarm could finish its first chime. I brought it down fast, faster than safe, faster than procedure, the deck plates howling as I bled the spin out of the great ring, and I was on the cradle floor before the medics, old dry Thren legs carrying me faster than they had in years, and I reached her cradle as the weight came off her, and her chest pulled in a long, ragged breath all on its own. She was alive. The safety had held. She'd gone under at 20, and her body, the moment the flood lifted, had simply started breathing again, the way that stubborn animal body was built to do, to keep going past the point where the prey gives up. Her eyes came open, slow and unfocused, found the ceiling, then found me. And the first thing Ren Castellan did, before she could even sit up, before the medics reached her, before she said a single word, the first thing she did was lift one trembling hand and check that the half-finished braid was still in her lap. It was. She closed her fingers around it, and then she let her hand fall and she looked at me, and she said the thing I have carried with me every day of the years since. "Told you," she breathed, "busy hands." The record says Ren Castellan reached 20 gravities and survived. It says she outlasted 12 valedictorians of 12 elite academies, every one of them broken before 16, most of them broken before 15. It says the human exchange cadet posted the highest sustained gravity tolerance in the Selvin Ring's recorded history. The record does not say what I learned, standing on that cradle floor with my old shell shaking. The 12 had spent their lives building themselves into the strongest possible thing, and a strong thing, when the weight finally exceeds it, shatters. The human had never tried to be strong at all. She'd come up that transport ramp carrying her own bag, sat in her cradle, and treated the most punishing force in the galaxy the way her gran had treated a hard, long day on a farm she ran alone into her 90s, as whether to be outlasted, with busy hands and an easy back and no story to break. They sent the 12 home as legends, and they were. Pride is not a sin. Uruntal shook my hand before he left, and there was something new and quieter in his face, something I think made him a better soldier than all 9 generations had. Senval asked before her transport whether she might write to the human. Dorun the heavy worlder asked nothing and simply nodded at Ren on his way out, one body that had taken the weight honestly to another. And Ren Castellan went home to her fringe world with the highest record in the ring's history and a half-finished braid in her green duffel bag, and she did not seem to think she'd done anything remarkable at all. I asked her, the night before she left, why she hadn't fought it, why she'd let 20 gravities sit on her instead of resisting it like every proud cadet I'd ever certified. She thought about it. Then she gave me the answer I've spent the rest of my career failing to teach to the strong ones. You can't outpush a thing that big, she said. You'll just spend yourself trying, so you stop pushing. You find one small thing your hands can do. She shrugged, and it cost her. She was still sore to her bones. And you let the rest of it pass over you. Everything passes over you if you're still there when it's done. I have run the wheel for 41 years. I have certified the proudest blood in the galaxy, and watched it shatter at gravities a small human girl outlasted with a ball of soft string in her lap. And if you ever find yourself under a weight you cannot fight, and you will, everyone does, sooner or later, I hope you remember her. Don't try to be the strongest thing in the room. Just find something small your hands can do. And be the one still there when the weight passes.